everyone, and welcome along to another VCO Esports studio with myself, Ben Constanduros. We are nearly into 70 episodes of this, so if you've missed any of them, make sure you go back through on your favourite podcast or indeed on YouTube, where you can also see my face. We have just finished the VCO Pro Sim series, and it's a big congratulations to Maximilian Beneke and Chris Lullum for taking victory for Team Redline. And well, we've already interviewed the boss of Team Redline way back at the very start of the esports studio, Dom Doohan. We've also already interviewed Maximilian Beneke way back, probably nearly a year ago now. So check through the archives on that one. And it was only a couple of weeks ago that we spoke to Chris Lullum. So we were kind of scratching our heads and thinking, well, we've covered all the bases. We've covered all the very best sim races in the world. But you know what? We haven't spoken to one of the very best commentators in the sim racing world. And so tonight, we introduce VCO's very own Lewis McGlade. And not just VCO's, actually. We claim you as our own, Lewis, but you are a man of many platforms and many talents.
I do spread myself. You're really, scraping the bottom of the barrel here by dragging me along. But no, it's been a great year, and VCO Pro Sim, the last season that's just happened, I did speak a little bit to Florian afterwards, saying that it was a fantastic series. You know, those prototypes racing in the sprint style of racing, which we don't typically see them racing in. It was great from start to finish, but it was completely dominated, wasn't it?
It was a bit dominated, which was a big surprise with Maximilian Beneke, especially after his kind of tantrum that he ended up having last season. I think maybe the pressure of being partnered with Max Verstappen in such a high-profile series in Series 1 and then losing Verstappen about halfway through the season kind of threw him a little bit under the bus. But he had a consistent teammate, a very good teammate in Chris Lullum, and ultimately got back to a place where Maximilian Beneke hasn't been for a while, in my opinion.
No, I've kind of obviously kept my eye on everything that happens across sim racing, whether it's on iRacing or elsewhere. And Beneke's an interesting one where he's got the highest I rating on the service, is higher than everyone else. But then the question marks come in: is he the best driver on the service? And it's a bit of a contentious topic that is not really the easiest one to answer, because I don't think it is a yes or no. It's an A or B. There's a bit more fluidity to it. And I kind of think that last season there was a bit of the acceptance of there are other drivers out there that are very, very fast indeed. And Beneke is a quality driver, but in that kind of series where you need to be teamed up with someone who is as consistent and is as comfortable, not having the driver lineup change every round and question marks as to where things will go. This season, having Chris Lullum, having a driver who we know is exceptionally fast, quite a young talent as well, and getting faster as time goes on, put up with the experience of Max Beneke. It was a match made in heaven, and it was brilliant to watch, to be perfectly honest. I was so glad that we were all kind of in the commentary booth watching over one really terrific, great partnership in sim racing sort of come together. It's alongside the same sort of partnerships that we see from Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong when those two partner up. They're always fantastic, or even from the previous season, Josh Rogers and Ian Chanjeevan. You know, what a great lineup they were when they won the championship.
Yeah, although not necessarily so strong this season with a couple of issues and changes. Lewis, we're not really here to talk about championships that we've spoken on. We're here to talk a bit about you. Not only VCO VCO Sim Award winner as commentator last year, this year voted again and also voted in the Photography Award. So I wanted to find out a little bit more about kind of how you found yourself in commentary. Where did it all begin for Lewis McGlade?
Yeah, back in 2012, actually, I was watching some. I'd started watching Formula One. Yeah, it was a fair while. I started watching Formula One. I was thinking, because I started watching Formula One a bit later than most. So yes, it was 2012 for my first season. Sorry, lads. And I was like, okay, surely there's like an esports version of this or something in games. I was playing the F1 games, and then I came across the YouTube channel of someone called Thomas Jacobs, who now works for Codemasters. Actually, he's a livery designer over there. Tom Jake 767 on YouTube, and I was watching some of his content and stuff, and he was racing in a series called GRC, which was touring cars, and I thought, surely there's got to be an open-wheeled variant of this touring car series, on R Factor. I don't know what this is. I have no idea what it's doing. And I, searched around. I found Formula Sim Racing, and then sent an email over to them, and with no commentary experience at all, They took me on, and I did a few rounds of that. I moved over to doing some stuff in a league as well called Grand Prix Virtual World Championships, GPVWC. Had a great time commentating. I took a little bit of a break from commentating as I started actually driving in sim racing to not so great success. We'll go with that. But that was about 3 or 4 years ago. I was like, look, I need to come back into the commentary booth. This stuff is starting to explode. And I fancy myself a bit of a return, but now with some knowledge as to what's actually happened on the racetrack. And ever since, to be honest, I really do love being in the commentary booth. To be honest, it's much easier than driving because you just get to sit there and talk about it.
Well, yeah, those that can't talk or teach. And teaching is a bit of what you do in commentary. What made you think that you could commentate when you first sent that email off to the platform FSR? Did you have any inkling that you could do it, or you just fancied your chances?
I was on the radio a little bit, just briefly. I was in Canterbury when I was in college. I was studying media at the time. The media production at college, and from that I was doing a little bit on a community radio there for 6 or 7 months. And I thought, I mean, it's basically the same skill and it's talking. But
yeah,
it was a step. It was more so. I was always the color commentator. I was always sat there just on the side, never doing any lead or anything. I was guided a little bit by the likes of Scott Woodward, who obviously now does real world commentary and whatnot, by James Kirk, who now does Rocket League and stuff. And they were the kind of ones that were sort of guiding me through my opening, to be honest, year or so. I don't know when it clicked as just when you can do it. It's just when you've done enough broadcasts and then you feel comfortable. I think everyone's pretty average to bad when they start. Of course you are, because it's a skill that's not really, it's not easy to pick up. It takes a little bit of time. And the only way to learn it is to do it, is just to get out there, sit on a broadcast and talk rubbish for 2 hours and see where things go. And, after a fair time, it just eventually clicks.
And so you did your racing and you discovered you weren't very good at it, like so many of us do. Came back to commentary, but what interests me about kind of your career, let's say, is that you don't dedicate yourself to one platform. You spread your wings, and as far as I'm aware, you kind of commentate across all the online platforms that really exist.
Trying to think of one that I haven't commentated on. I've obviously most recently it's been R Factor 2, of course, Assetto Corsa Competizione, and then of course iRacing. I've done plenty on Race Room as well in the recent past, which has always been a good fun. I've not ever done a broadcast on Automobilista, which, despite it actually being my favourite sim, I love Automobilista. It's fantastic. I've never done a broadcast on it, but it all started with R Factor. It was only in like the more, to be honest, it was last year, when I was like, I really do need to get out there on some other simulators. Because I was just on R Factor and then doing the odd bit on Race Room. Whereas then, last year, especially after winning the Simmy Award, I was like, I need to get on a Assetto Corsa competition. I need to get on the iRacing. I need to spread myself, because especially as things are unfolding over to be honest, the years to come, the sim racing community is coming together more and more. We're becoming one, and it means that we're seeing the drivers and stuff move from each simulator to each simulator, and it means that the commentators as well, kind of, to understand the full picture, we all kind of need to spread ourselves out and see what's actually happening, because it's no use just being on one platform and then going, oh, who's this Josh Rogers guy? Never heard of him. He must be rubbish. He's doing really good for a new guy.
It's so true, and I think there is a little bit of that still exists out there. Certainly on certain sort of platforms, you do have those dedicated people that would never touch any other platform, and then you have the commentators, the drivers that are happy to spread their wings a bit. What was the driving force behind spreading your wings? What was the ultimately the reason for it?
I just wanted to make sure that I was, riding this kind of wave of sim racing growing. I want to be, same as all of us. We all kind of want to be towards the head of it. But to be perfectly honest, and I know because he's in our ear at the moment, but one Mr. Mike Yao, who is part of the same team, the same contingent that I'm from as a driver, but I don't really drive very much. Has always been a bit of a driving force, kind of pushing me, being like, come on, you need to come over into Assetto Corsa. Come on, you need to go and do this. And then once sort of one thing happens, the next thing clicks, and now it's sort of, oh, there's something that I've not commentated on. I've never commentated on Forza or Gran Turismo, and I was like, I need to just give it a go and see what it's like to again learn different disciplines. And so now it's not just the simulators; it's learning different disciplines of racing from a commentary perspective, like oval racing. I did my first oval race as a commentator last year, at the end of last year, and then some rallycross as well, because it's learning. I think, it's the same thing I've said as well with drivers and stuff, is the drivers kind of, you should always try different cars and different styles of racing to increase your racecraft and stuff. And for me, I kind of want to be the same from a commentary perspective. I want to try everything from a commentary perspective so that I can learn more that then colours in the picture of a sort of overall.
And I think you're correct that there are different ways of commentating, certainly whether it be an endurance race or a sprint, whether it be an oval or a rallycross event. Every single discipline does have a different way of approaching it, and there are ways, and we could go for hours on that. But I know that there'll be lots of people who'll be listening and watching to this, looking to you for advice and understanding how it goes, how it works, basically. So if you are wanting to you've identified something that you want to commentate on, are you actively looking around, trying to search out those new possibilities, or are you finding now that those possibilities come to you and you don't have to do the hunting and the searching and the begging and the emails?
I mean, I still think for the most part, a lot of it, if you wait for it to come to you, it probably won't come to you. You've got to go out there and hunt for it a little bit. Even if it's just an email or a quick message. I mean, it doesn't take 2 seconds to open up a Discord message and just throw a message over to someone and be like, hey, I see you're taking part in this series. Who should I contact about? I'd kind of like to commentate on that. I kind of like to get in on that. Who do I message? And that's kind of what it is, really. It's nothing too major. I'm not having to write out a 3,000 word essay. And to be honest, you don't need to. No one needs to. You just need to get out there and just throw a couple of messages around and be like, right, okay, I'm looking for a touring car series to race. And what touring car series are there? Who's looking for a commentator? And just throw some messages out there, because even if I've come across this so many times where I've messaged someone being like, is there any room in there for me to jump in and have a bit of fun on commentary? And they'll go, do you know what? We're full on this one, but there is this other series as well that we run in partnership. Would you like to go and commentate on them? And it's kind of, one thing leads to another. I've had that with SimGrid fairly recently, who kind of opened the door to get into the VCO Esports stuff. I wouldn't be on any of those broadcasts if it wasn't for commentating on SimGrid. And then I wouldn't have found, to be honest, I wouldn't have commentated on the SimGrid, which, by the way, the VCO World Cup, the SimGrid VCO World Cup that we just wrapped up a few months ago, was absolutely fantastic from start to finish. And I enjoyed that as much as anything else. So it's kind of, you just need to get out there and give everything a go.
I want to talk to you about how easy each different platform is to commentate, because there's one kind of surprise for me in the back end world of commentary when it comes to sim racing. I think I have now done, as you have, all the different platforms. And what do you find the easiest platform to commentate on? I'm interested to see if this is the same as me.
Oh, I wonder what yours would be. Mine is pretty simple. It's where I've made most of my home. It's R-Factor 2. I think it's the easiest one to commentate on, just with how the overlay just clicks for me. I look at it and I'm like, right, boom, I know what I'm looking at. Other ones I can struggle with a little bit. That's what yours is.
I like Race Room, because
Race Room's handy.
It's an amazing system where you've got the colours of the car, you've got the cars themselves, you've got gaps to the next driver, your gaps to the leader, and it's kind of very visual in a way that most of the other timing screens and timing screening is so important in commentary. If you're listening and haven't done any commentary, reading a timing screen is the most important thing, and it's one thing that for the moment ACC is still appalling at. And there are different ways of presenting iRacing, because it's been there for so long. There are different mods behind it, but for me, Race Room's kind of colourful, very different way of reading a timing screen is quite makes it easy to understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, to speak of that, there is actually one thing that Race Room does better than I've not come across another platform that's done it. Where you've got a live time, but there's also a way in it that you can almost have like a spotter's guide as well. Like you can have it so it shows the cars that you're looking at, which is so helpful when you're kind of like, oh, this green car, who was that? And then you kind of go, there must be in 7th place. And where is that on the right? Boom. Rather than going, who must be in that car? Let me work out the names and stuff. And I know it sounds like, we're just sort of saying, being like, well, it should be a lot easier. But the easier it is for us, the easier it is for us to convey that to the audience. And I've struggled with with a few sims and stuff, especially going off of things like the timing towers. It can be immensely complicated when you're staring at it and you're seeing a 3-wide bit going into a corner, and you're sat there thinking, I've got no idea who this is. And you're trying to work out on the fly who it is, who's actually overtaking who, why it's 3 wide, what corner you're even in, and then where they are on the timing sheets, which I don't think so many people understand how difficult that is to do in such a short period, unless you've actually tried doing it on commentary. Because we all know that it's so easy to get tripped up just over the small things, especially when, I don't know how many times you've had this, Ben, but where you've got 2 drivers or 2 different battles, but there's the same team in each battle. So you've got one team with 2 different drivers like in each battle, and it's just, I have no idea which battle this is. This could be for 6th, it could be for 13th. I don't know what I'm looking at.
Yeah. And then that's where the generalizations come in, like there's the VRS car or there's the Red Bull car, just because you actually don't want to commit to something that perhaps is wrong. And it's something that I've really struggled with when coming into sim racing from real world, because one of the first things that I do, whether it be a new championship or just a singular race that I'm visiting, I normally do the Spa 24 hours, but I don't do the rest of the championship. So first thing to do, walk around the paddock, walk around the pit lane, get a vision of every single car out there, try and get some visual cues as to who's in the car, what that car is, what team that is, is it the same team as, or is it a sponsored team that's kind of, FF Corsa, for instance, run lots of cars, but they don't call themselves FF Corsa across 13 cars. They have different names. So you try and establish all that information when you're walking around a paddock. You can't do that in sim racing. Literally, the first time you see half the cars, and you and I know this from the VCO Pro Sim, is when they're racing in front of you and there's 40 of them.
Yeah, we don't really get spotters guides so much. I mean, the whole team dynamic that you're saying there, I mean, we've been over this quite a few times with how complicated it is in sim racing with some teams and sponsors. And it's always the one that I kind of fall back to. I know Arjuna does as well, about the Marla team. Is that sometimes they're a Williams team, sometimes they're a BS competition team, and it's like you don't really know who their sister team is. It's kind of like you've got to kind of back off with joining them, knowing who's actually under what brand is immensely complicated in sim racing, and it's where it's down to us to kind of pick the pieces, which is honestly, when things change in sim racing so quickly with teams and lineups and stuff. Often I've looked at a broadcast, I've jumped onto it and been like, I have no idea who's driving for who. I'm just like, yep, there's some names and there's some cars. Cool.
Lewis, is this your full-time job now? Have you managed to make this a career and a job?
Partially. I mean, I still work, for those of you that don't know, I still work in a restaurant. I don't work there very much. I only go in once a week. I'm very lazy. The poor guys. I more work there as a sort of an excuse to sort of get out into the world and actually talk to people. Otherwise, I just sit in here all day because I'm lazy. But for the most part, yes, I do this as this is my priority. This is my job. I do enough of it to pay the bills. It's just spreading myself out a lot. It's good fun though.
Why not work in a pub rather than go to a pub? At least by working in a pub, you don't have to spend all the money.
I get free food all the time. It's great.
There you go. You don't have to spend any money on the evening either. So that means being full time. Then you also have potentially the ability to branch out into the real world. Is that something that you would be interested in? Is that part of the game plan, or are you really just want to be the best sim commentator that there is?
It's not an easy one. That I've kind of thought about it a lot. Obviously, I think the goal for most of us in sim racing and commentary is that we always want to jump over at some point to commentate on real world stuff. That's always going to be the goal, and it is most certainly the goal for me at some point, is to be commentating on a real world championship, and obviously jumping in and enjoying that as you see fit. But finding the right opportunities there is not necessarily easy, and also it's a big jump out of a comfort zone, which unfortunately I think for most of us, we kind of find ourselves sat in our comfort zones a lot in the sim racing community. It's why a lot of people didn't jump out of the simulator they were on for so long. For me, I feel eventually I will make that jump, hopefully, at some point. If someone would take me on, that is the big one on that, the massive caveat. But as sim racing's growing in the way that it is, I am fairly content with where I am and where things are growing in sim racing, and you know what the future lies. Just one day, if someone could throw me a message, go on.
There's a tip for all you guys out there. What about photography? We've spoken about commentary, but I completely wanted to talk to you about the very unique skill of photography within Sims.
Yeah, it's certainly not easy. It's one thing that changes. I mean, we say that commentary and stuff changes simulator to simulator, dependent on timing towers and stuff. Photography is one thing which you have to be able to adapt to quickly on simulators. It's actually one of the first things that I did in sim racing. I did, you know, commentary, driving, and photography. And I got taught by a man who's no longer in sim racing anymore, a man named Jesper Tolborg, who won a whole heap of championships. But you know, fantastic driver. But one of the best things that he had in his skill set was being a photographer. And one day we were talking, and he was like, "Oh, you should do it like this and do it like that." He then sent me one of his Photoshop documents with how he edits his photographs. And from that point on, I was like, I kind of want to use this skill. I kind of want to learn. It's not an easy skill. You can fall back on the standard, for example, using iRacing. You can fall back on the standard motion blur that iRacing uses and sit back and go, yeah, that's an all right looking photograph. But it's when you want to make something that's better than that, when you want to really go in it and touch it up. And sometimes, you know, it can take 20, 30 minutes, sometimes even up to an hour. I've spent an hour on some photographs where you've got to cut out the car. You've got to make everything look good. Sometimes you're even adding in shadows here and there. You're adjusting the colors, adjusting the lighting and all this. It's very, very difficult, but it is rewarding when you can sit back and think, oh, that game looks good. Oh, no, that's me. That's very egotistical, of course. I do apologize. But there are plenty of great photographers out there. I mean, of course, Improv Design taught me quite a bit recently when we were doing some photographs on DNLS. The speed that these people put photographs out, by the way, is ridiculous. It takes me about, like I say, half an hour to an hour. They'll do it in 2 minutes.
And I think that's actually something that is relatable in the real world as well. That, you know, you are able to take okay photos as a common man like myself. To take great photos is difficult, and then to take great photos quickly so they can be used in this social media world where you need one right now, that's really where the ultimate skill is. And that's where you suddenly end up with only the creme de la creme that can really perform under that kind of pressure.
Yeah, it's knowing the adjustments that you can make to a photograph quickly. You know, that there are, you could, if you wanted to, if you really wanted to, you could take a bunch load of photographs and you could cut out every car and blur every background and make everything look fantastic. And that will take you potentially the rest of your life, because it's a long time commitment. Whereas, you know, particularly the very, very best when it comes to editing photographs, which I do not really apply myself to. I take way too long. But these guys that do it in 2, 3, 4 minutes, constantly editing photographs all the time, they know what they need to edit and what doesn't need to be edited. Like, say, for example, the motion blur that I was saying before in the background. If it's there, you can then take that and you can just add some color corrections and blur some little bits. And then rather than it taking 20 minutes, you've created essentially the same photograph in a tenth of the time. And these people that are the very best, they know how to do that very, very quickly. I've not mastered that. I like to take my time, you know, put on some music and sit there and edit away to my heart's content. But I mean, some of the photographs that I've seen in sim racing, especially in the last, I'd say 18 months, the level of photography has just absolutely shot up in sim racing. It's kind of all over the place. It's almost as if everyone and their dog can edit brilliant photographs these days on a very consistent basis.
Yeah, technology has made it easier though. That's I think that's the case with everything, isn't it? Suddenly the skills less and less taken out of it because of the technology is there. So between commentary and photograph trips to the restaurant, do you have any time still to go racing? And what do you do when you're just trying to chill out and enjoy a good race?
I mean, I still race a little bit, and mostly it's in touring car stuff for one major reason. It's easy to pick up and get on with it. I've recently been racing in the Virtual Motorsports Online Touring Car UK Championship, where we did win the team's championship and the drivers, not me driving though, not me winning the drivers. That was my teammate Dan Kell. Good on him. I race in something called the Mushroom Trophy, which always sounds ridiculous to say, but it's a classic super touring series on Automobilista, which is always good fun. That's the style of racing I like doing. It's just something super casual. You just turn on, you just come into the race, and you just enjoy it. I don't have the time to put in the 3,000 laps of practice which it requires to get up to speed, and I've been there before where I had that kind of time. I don't have the mentality to do that time and time again. It's one thing that I do respect the sim drivers a lot for when they put in that much effort. I couldn't do it. Been there, tried that, did not want the t-shirt, sold it on eBay.
Absolutely. I think we all feel the same after lockdown kind of forced it upon us, and suddenly we're like, oh, we could do it, but then real world came back and went, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe it's okay to be outside a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it comes to like outside stuff, I think quite a few people know this. I go out and ride my bike. Every time that I want to get away from sim racing, I'm just like, right, bike outside, couple of hours, just get away from the computer, get away from everything, get away from, to be honest, any responsibility. Just put some music in and just ride for a couple of hours.
This is this Sadikist mountain biking, or is this Geraint Thomas Tour de France road biking?
Yeah, road bikes. Love myself some road bikes. I do have a gravel bike. I just never go off road because I tried once and I got a load of punctures and was like, nah, I can't. No, I'm good now. I'll stick to the road, thanks.
Awesome. Lewis, thank you very much for taking your time to chat with us. As always, great to chat with you and hear a little bit about your story.
Thank you. Well, it's been a pleasure to jump in. Finally, you've got around to me. You've sort of bitten that bullet. Coming down this low. Hopefully, whoever follows up is a rise back up to normal form. But been great fun, nice chat.
Absolutely, and good luck, of course, in the VCO SIMMY Awards. The results of which will be at the end of the month, so December. We're not quite in December yet, but anyway, they'll be in about a month's time, where we'll have our awards show, and Lewis is up for Best Commentator and also Best Photographer after winning last year. Let's see if he can win it again. Thank you very much for joining us on this esports studio. And until next time, enjoy your sim racing. Bye-bye.